I am
Um,
It was mostly like last year with my family members being there and them just being behind me, just cheering me on, congratulating me. It was a great feeling. Overall, it was a great season and great we made it that far, but kind of mad we didn't make it to state. But I have next year, so yeah. My experience here has been great. The atmosphere they put us in, all the coaches, all their excitement, it's been amazing. Yeah, I love it here. Yeah, I would love to thank the Board of Education for recognizing my football skills on the field. And, yeah.
Gatorade Missouri Volleyball Player of the Year. Cisneros is the third Gatorade Missouri Volleyball Player of the Year to be chosen from Liberty North High School. The 6'1 junior, you're tall.
Thank you.
She amassed 534 kills and 425 digs this past season, leading the Eagles to a 31-6 record and to the Class State semifinals. Carly also tallied 63 blocks and 31 service aces, posting a 391 kill percentage and a 305 hitting percentage on the attack. Ranked as the nation's #1 recruit in the class of 2024 by PrepVolleyball.com, Cisneros is a 3-time Class 5 first-team All-of-State selection. She concluded her junior year with the school record 1,237 career kills. Are you embarrassed yet of me bragging upon you?
No.
Cisneros, this is impressive and a big reason, just as big, why you've received this award. You've maintained a 3.93 GPA in the classroom. She's made a verbal commitment to play volleyball on scholarship at the University of Arizona beginning in the fall of 2024. A big-time talent standing next to me. A big round of applause for your very Gatorade volleyball player. Also want to thank her coach, Katie Dowd. Thanks for being here. Made a little special. She's coaching swim. She was en route from the community center, and we appreciate her being here as well. And I also want to thank Dr. Precious Kirk, the principal of Liberty North, for being here with us here this evening. We're going to recognize Isabella Tony. Isabella, I know you're back there. I'm going to have you just hang on for just a second because we're going to premiere a really nice video. Isabella is a senior student at Liberty North High School. Last week I had a chance to meet Isabella as she was in the midst of her LPS Network 53 internship at the Liberty Early Childhood Center. Isabella's story is amazing and one that we wanted to share with you tonight. Let's take a look.
I am a special education teacher at Liberty North High School. I work with students that have IEPs, students with disabilities. Isabella's journey is much longer and larger than my place in that journey. I'm just a tiny little piece.
So we've always tried to figure out what is her passion in life, and she's really taken to working with children.
Since I've known her, she's always said, I want to work with young kids.
It's just fun getting to interact with them. Sometimes they get upset about things and I just tell them like, hey, it's okay to be upset.
When she was a junior, she had done the child development classes. She even did the more advanced child development class and was successful in that experience. And so we were just really looking at how can we get her outside of these four walls to really actually work with kids. I contacted Jennifer Henderson and said, what are the options? She needed that hands-on experience. There's nothing I could teach her that she could really learn. She needs to sit around some 3- and 4-year-olds to really be able to feel that and know how to solve a problem in the minute.
There was an issue with, how is she going to be transferred? So the district transportation office actually stepped into that role, and it was a team effort all the way around throughout the district to make this opportunity happen.
We've loved having Isabella in our class this year. She's been coming in and working with us during our small group time and then during our centers. She engages with the children one-on-one and assists them with the different skills we're learning.
Getting to help kids with different kinds of things and see what the teachers need help with.
I think her strengths has been connecting with the students. They are excited when she comes in and they want her to sit by them and play with her.
Like, I always enjoy it when they are excited to see me.
When I've spoken with people that have worked with her in the past, it's been neat to say, I don't even know that student. Like, that's a different person I'm seeing. Like, the growth that happened prior to my experience with her is massive.
I'm exceptionally proud of the opportunity for Isabella in high school to be provided this opportunity that she's been given. It just kind of leapfrogs her into her future.
She was like, well, I have a 1-year plan and I have a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. And I was like, was this your idea? Like, this is amazing. I don't even think I have a 5-year plan.
What would you like to do after high school?
Work at a daycare.
I really see her working with kids. I would really love to see her living on her own, getting herself to and fro. That would be the dream, and I do think it's possible because with every passing minute, month, year, she gets more and more independent.
It's been beneficial for us because it just creates another opportunity of connection for the students, and it just gives another set of hands and more guidance for them as they're starting kind of their educational journey. And for Isabella, I feel like it's been really beneficial for her to kind of get that opportunity to be in a leadership role, but also experience what the world of education is like, and kind of opens up that door of whether this might be a future possibility.
Like, it reminds me, why am I doing this? Because not everybody sees the success she does. We want to teach our kids to be able to know yourself, know your limitations, work with them, and then make a life.
Come on up, Isabella. I've said this before here, the greatest part of my job is to meet so many amazing students. Another example, being up at the Early Childhood Center a couple of days last week. You are doing an amazing job, and we congratulate you for everything you're doing. Awesome. Let's give her another round. And that concludes honoring excellence for this evening.
Well, thank you, Dallas. Appreciate that. Good news all around. We're going to take a moment here in a minute to go out and say congratulations to Carly and Isabella and meet them. But before we do that, I want to recognize certainly individuals who have filed for a board of director position in the upcoming April 4th, 2023 election. They include individuals Jen Bauer, Luba Koval, Angela Reed, AJ Bird, Kira Montori, Brian Ahart, Amanda Beers, and Carl Cox coming up on April 4th. So thank them for their participation in our district. I also will remind you, if you do want to participate in public comment, sort of periwinkle. I'm going to go with cards, fill that out and hand that to Denise, and we'll do that. We're going to take about 5 minutes here and go out and say hello and congratulate those folks. All right, coming back, I see you still just have the one public comment card. Again, if you want to, feel free to give it to Denise. I'm going to read a little something before we do public comment. Speakers may address any subject concerning Liberty Public Schools and/or education. Board members will not engage in debates or discussions with those speaking other than to seek clarification of the speaker's comments. Speakers will address the board from the podium and are asked to keep remarks concise and to the point. Will not repeat what someone before has said. Person or persons may speak only once at the meeting. Several patrons wish to speak at the same topic. The board president may restrict the input to one or two spokespersons. Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. Profane language or comments that constitute a threat to the safety of others is prohibited. Spontaneous comments from the audience will not be tolerated and may close public comment. In the event board members agree that the normal flow of business is being unnecessarily delayed, they may by majority vote waive or end public comment. Concerns brought forward during public comment may be addressed by the superintendent or appropriate staff members, usually within a week. And this evening, Mary Kimmerly.
There we go. Good evening. My name is Mary Kimmerly. I'm a junior at Liberty North High School, and I'm the vice president of our Fresh Club, as well as I'm involved in a student-led advocacy organization called Youth with Vision, which is in the Tri-County area. We advocate for limiting and fighting the devastating effects of alcohol and drug use, as well as promoting positive mental wellness and health in our schools and communities. So as you can tell, I'm a very big advocate for mental health and healthy coping mechanisms, and as well as I'm very passionate about suicide awareness and prevention in our schools. So I believe that every interaction that I have should leave that person feeling safe and valued. And so I very much value mental wellness and suicide prevention. But sadly, in Clay County alone, nearly 1 in 4 students report feeling immense sadness, and 1 in 10 have seriously considered taking their own lives with suicide. That was according to the most recent Missouri Student Survey. While there is no universal solution, there are support mechanisms that can be put in place. And the state of Missouri actually has recently passed a law that will require all public and charter schools that issue student identification cards to include the National Suicide Crisis Line, 988, on the back or the front of it. Currently, Liberty North, we have student identification cards, but on the back of it, it has an advertisement for Wellness Warehouse and Liberty Nutrition, which I find kind of sad that we haven't had something in place a little earlier, but now is a great time for change, and I believe that, well, I mean, it is the law, so you kind of have to do it, but I think it's a great opportunity to also brainstorm some other ways that we can also put 988 and other places. So I additionally propose that our district's high schools should add something similar to our yearly parking passes. So on the back, we could add something that involves 988, or we could add something that encourages students to participate in safe driving and undistracted driving. So maybe something like keep your hands on the wheel and put your phone down, something like that. But something that would be in the student's car in their little frame of view that would just remind people, and also have that 988 maybe. That would just be a constant reminder that our school district is looking out for our students. So thank you for all the work and care that you put into our youth, and that is all I have for you. But I also actually have, I have these little flyers. Would I be able to hand these to you?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mary. Nice to see you as well. Blackwood. Nice job.
Thank you. It's nice seeing you.
Thanks for sharing.
It's in one of our policies.
Thank you much.
Thank you, Ms. Kimberly. Moving into the consent agenda portion of our meeting this evening, as a reminder, our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules, provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member.
I move the board approve consent agenda items 3.01 to 3.06.
Second.
Denise, when you're ready.
AJ,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Kim Marie,
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Angie,
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Into section 4, reports from the administration, starting with innovation and learning.
First off is innovation and learning, so we will welcome Dr. Westfall to the podium. And one of the things that I would share about her, if you're not aware, she recently announced her retirement. So she is a short timer, which means she's counting the number of board meetings she has left. So congratulations to Dr. Westfall. The board reluctantly accepted your retirement letter earlier last month, but nonetheless, we look forward to seeing where you end up over these next few years. So
Not
we'll turn it over to you.
10 days exactly.
How many hours?
Not enough, I'll be real honest with you. Not enough. It's I was just telling Nick, happiness and olive mixed in one big bubble.
Right.
So, thank you for having me tonight. It's nice to see everyone. I would like to bring forward from our board report from Dr. Moore and from me that the Clay County Children's Services Fund, CSF, conducted an audit of the services in LPS occurring between September 2021 and August of 2022. And the auditor looked closely at our programming, training, and interventions that were funded by the CSF grant. And their summary statement noted that LPS provided clear and accurate documentation of the programs in this grant. Outcomes data presented an overall positive growth or maintenance of high pretest scores for both students and teachers. The auditor had no additional recommendations at the time of the audit. So we were really excited about that. It is a significant portion of money that we put toward the health and welfare, talking about what Mary shared with us today for our students, so it was really good to hear that. I also wanted to share a little bit about the upcoming professional development that we're about to have with competency learning and surface deep and transfer learning in the classroom. So that application of the academics to real world learning with Michael McDowell. Dr. McDowell will be in Liberty next week for our teacher cohort, and then we have principal time, coaching time, and then additional days were purchased by our middle school and high school ELA teams to really try to focus on the application of real-world learning in the classroom. In addition, our district professional development committee actually has hired him, and they saw him at the Learning Forward conference a year ago in March. And he will be presenting a keynote speech at our February 17th district PD day. So half the day is a session with Dr. McDowell for the entire district working on surface deep and transfer, and then the other half is the building time working on visible learning. Then I know it's going to be hard to believe, but it is time to start thinking about 2023, 2024. And so our kindergarten enrollment will open on March 1st. And then speaking of working on next year, Dr. Moore and I have been starting our resources and professional development meetings as a part of the transition. We're sharing some of the responsibilities that I have to make sure that we don't have any gaps in providing services to our buildings next year. So we'll do resources review and then also professional development needs. That goes in conjunction with the professional development needs assessment survey that we send out to our staff every year. Those two in combination then are what we use to create the contracts and then the professional development plan that you approve in the summer. And that's all we have tonight.
Any questions from the board? Dr. Westfall or Dr. Moore?
Not a question, but the feedback in the Dr. Jorgensen report that was included as a link in there, I just, one, appreciated that feedback and looking through it and, looking at our mission in teaching kids, but also making sure that they're included, right? And the kids feel included in school and the comments from the parents. And I mean, it looks like just as in everything, there's always work to be done. but really appreciated seeing that report in there.
Thank you so much. I know you realize this, but our work in special education is always a very client-driven practice, and there are so many different ways that we could go with it, but really trying to always consider that. And we've had to work a lot with operations and finance to try to figure out what our next steps are and what does it look like to make sure that we're offering the very best care without overreaching the abilities that we have.
Right.
And so I appreciate Dr. Cook. I mean, she's always thoughtful about that. It's tough. It's a tough space sometimes.
Anything else?
Chris Hand's report had information about the SEL surveys going out. When would that wrap up? And
I think it just ended.
Oh, okay.
He sent out a flyer today to just get everybody to close the survey down, and then we'll have that. We should have that here probably by the study session.
Okay.
We should have it pretty soon.
Okay.
We can watch it come in, so we do keep our eyes on it. But.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Westfall. 4.02 then is our Office of Equity report. So we will welcome Dr. Andrea Dixon-Seahorn to the podium this evening.
Good evening. So good to see you on this evening. We do have a couple of pieces featured in our report around the Equity in Schools grant. I won't go into detail with it because I think it's pretty detailed here. I do want to add on, though, to what Dr. Westfall just mentioned about PD that is being geared up for the second semester. And so an additional piece to our PD is the belonging PD. And so you do know that that's being paid for out of our Equity in Schools grant. Dr. Westfall and I, as a matter of fact, on today just met with the core collaborative to just kind of finalize some details about that upcoming PD. And so we do have a session scheduled for DLT, District Leadership Team, on February the 14th. We also have our building equity cadres coming up at the end of February, going into March. So that's that last week in February for school leaders and their site-based teams. And again, as a reminder, that includes not just school leaders in terms of principals and assistant principals, but also teachers and even support staff members. So that could be nutritional services, team members, custodial staff, sped parents, just a nice mix of individuals at the table talking about how we can continue to build the culture of belonging within our schools. And then the last PD that we have scheduled for this school year around belonging is with our academic and operations directors. That will be in March. That's a special session that we were able to build in to the schedule for this year, and so we'll have more details about that coming up. Another thing that I wanted to mention, it's not in the report, but it's around our equity action plans. This is the time of the year where we do the mid-year check-ins. And so I've already scheduled meetings in person with our directors on the academic side of the operation of our organization. And then going into February, I'll schedule the meetings with our operations directors. So this is just an opportunity for them to share updates, the progress that's being made as they're implementing their strategic belonging goals for this year. So that's all I have, other than to just add that the Coffee with the Community segment for January belongs to the Office of Equity, so we'll share some updates of the work that we've been doing. Showcasing 2022, but then also speaking to where we go from here. So that's all I have to share. If you have any questions?
When is that meeting, the coffee? Is it art? When is it scheduled?
Well, it's scheduled for me to do the recording on this Thursday.
Okay.
And I believe it'll be in real time on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
It's Thursday.
This coming Thursday, it'll be streamed.
Thursday.
Okay.
Other questions of Dr. Dixon-Seahorn?
Thank you. I better go now while I can.
Thank you. They know where you are. Next then is 4.03, our finance report, and we will welcome Ms. Cindy Sullivan.
Good evening. First tonight, I have a donation to present to you. We received a donation from Larry Brown Excavating for labor and material to construct a new javelin runway at Liberty North High School. It was valued at $2,920. So we would like to thank them very much for that donation. And javelin's a little scary for me, but they helped us out there, so we'd like to thank them.
They're not asking you to catch.
Thank you.
Could be worse.
The thought of it is new starting to me, but I'll have to go watch them sometime on the new runway. This past week on Friday, we did receive our first big round of property tax revenue. So we received about 84% of the budgeted current revenue in taxes on Friday. That's a little less than the same percentage we received at this time last year, but as you will know as a taxpayer in Clay County, that deadline to pay those taxes was extended to January 3rd. So I'm hoping that that extension date caused those revenues to lag a little bit, which of course we should receive another payment at the end of this month, and then another probably sizable payment in February. So I look forward to catching up to where we were at this time last year with that. We will be investing all of the debt service portion of that and a good amount of the operating portion of that in a liquid series through PFM, who is one of our investment partners. The liquid rate right now is about 4.3%, so we'll see some good earnings on a little under $68 million that we will invest. And by keeping it liquid, we can invest most of it and get it drawn down as we need it. And that rate is very close to what a 90-day rate would be that would tie up our money, which we don't want to do with too much of it. So we're just going to keep it all in liquid and earn good interest this year. We too are looking forward to next year, which we really start that in November, but we are starting to schedule budget meetings with all budget managers in preparation for the series of presentations that we bring to you on FY24's budget. So we will be meeting with them and yet with the accounting department who pulls the majority of the weight in presenting you that budget document. So that has started in earnest, and as you will recall, in March we will bring to you a preliminary revenue budget. So we're hot and heavy on working on that. The Audit and Finance Committee reviewed the documents, did not have anything to bring to you, but I do appreciate the work that they do and the questions that they ask, and just having another set of eyes on the finances of the district. They will have an in-person meeting on March 27th, but we'll review the documents that will be sent to them in February as well as they do every other month. So that's what I have for you tonight.
Any questions of Ms. Sullivan?
Thank you.
Thank you. 4.04 then, our operations report, provided this evening by Mr. Stephen Anderson.
Good evening. Just a few items I wanted to highlight. First, we're working it around the bond issue and the levy transfer. The informational sessions, they'll kind of pick up in earnest here at the end of this month and then roll into February, so that everybody's mindful of that. In addition, the website will continue to update that with information. So if anybody wants to learn anything more about those projects, they're all readily available, and then also an opportunity for questions to be asked if any of our patrons have questions. That's still active. Had a question come in today, so I think that continues to be a really good resource for us. Also wanted to address real briefly, I think we've kept you updated along the way. We did have a few water breaks when things got pretty cold over break. Took us a bit of time, took a lot of our crews working some long hours immediately after Christmas and into that week. Just wanted to acknowledge and recognize them, appreciate the work that they did. And Ridgeview was the one that was the most complicated. We just got that kind of back up to where it needs to be here beginning today. So really we appreciate that. In the report, made reference in there under transportation for electric buses. That comes up on occasion, and I think the main thing I wanted to point out is we continue to kind of evaluate that as an option, looking at grant opportunities, and I think we're getting closer to it being the right time. I still don't think we're quite there at the right time. Maybe as a quick reminder, back years ago, we were looking at compressed natural gas. I think we're glad we didn't do that. We were looking at making a commitment into that space. So we go a little bit slowly, but I think I want to make sure that we kind of do that the right way. And last, Kid Zone, this is always a good time. Usually it's a little bit later in the year to report out that we're really close to being off all of our wait lists. I appreciate the good work of the team there, and certainly our partnership with HR to get those positions filled. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
I don't have any questions, but I had a couple of things I just thought were great and wanted to highlight in your report about how the health group went and did Stop the Bleed training with HMS, and that a teacher at HMS, I think, what was it, the nurse was Tracy Rausenberger, and then Zach Breitenstein was the teacher who decided to get certified himself and then teach it to his whole class at Heritage. So I thought that was fantastic to see. That's a perfect example of real-world learning happening, and just initiative being shown. And then I really enjoyed reading that, as somebody who took advantage of Kids Zone, not only that the spaces are filling up, that we're able to get people in, but is this the first time, maybe I'm not sure, is this the first time that on President's Day you're able to offer drop-in for Kids Zone parents?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer to.
I don't know that they had that when I was there. But if that's great for parents that don't have that holiday off and they're in the program to be able to have the full day coverage on that day. So
I'll pass it along.
So
my guess is it probably isn't here, just noticing it this year. So yeah.
It's pretty. That's great. And then the other reflection I had on operations was just that, I know that there's a lot of attention right now and focus on some of the modernization of systems, and it's not really exciting maybe for the public to think about like why we would need a better software system to manage our transportation and create effective routes, or why we might need to upgrade our cybersecurity. But those are all things that connect back to student services, and so it is important for keeping students safe that we have investments in cybersecurity, and that it's also important for being able to get kids to routes efficiently to have upgraded software. It's not so long ago that we were a smaller district, but we've grown, and as we grow, we have to have upgrades and those kind of things to make things work efficiently. So.
Thanks for mentioning that. I was actually going to bring up the especially transportation one. That's going to be a really nice shift for them, and getting that where it integrates in with the rest of our systems. It's been a little bit of a challenge, but I do think it's going to help them be a little bit more nimble in the routing, so I think that'll be really positive for the district.
The only other thing, because I haven't asked in, 6 months maybe, nutrition services, supply chain, how's everything moving?
I think it's going well, primarily because we have space that we're using, and Misty Newland, our director, does a really nice job kind of staying on top of that. Last I checked, she's feeling really good about the flow, and I assume that's just going to continue through the school year.
Perfect.
Steve, thanks for the transportation department taking care of that young lady that was just here that we recognized. I mean, that says a whole lot about being able to customize education. And so,
if I could just, one of my favorite parts of that story was when I first heard the story about the student. I didn't know that was occurring, so I appreciate Jeff Baird and his team just doing it because it's the right thing to do. So.
Thank you.
You mentioned in preparation for the bond issue of the information sessions. Do we have a schedule for that? And what our expectation of participation in those will be?
Right. I think we start off in the schools, which is the normal routine with the superintendent. And then I think we're going to expand that as we hit February and March.
Jumping ahead a little bit. So we do have a schedule, and it is just about any day you have some choices. Okay. But as Steve mentioned, starting internally in terms of our State of the District events, there'll be two components. One will be a recording, kind of a talk through, a slide deck presentation that'll get pushed out to district staff, followed by, I think we've scheduled 15 or 20 minutes roughly at every campus, but then also at every department. That starts into this month. And so that's our road show. But then there's certainly another layer to that, coordinating with all of our PTAs and booster clubs to be able to do the very same thing. So we're working with PTA presidents, booster club presidents, to try to organize those. Those are primarily evenings. But once we have all of that scheduled, we'll be north of probably 75 plus meetings. But you can come to all of them or more of those community events as well. Cabinet jokes, and that by the time they've heard me say those sessions a couple times, they can certainly kind of reiterate, or they could host those. So we'll be sure and share that information with you.
So there's nothing this month. Yes, we got 2 more weeks till our.
Yeah, right. We do have some of those building level ones coming up.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll have those pretty quickly and be able to share that out via Friday update with the board.
Okay.
So. Anything else for Mr. Anderson? Okay. Thank you. Next then is our 4.05 Human Resources Report, and you will recognize at the front of the room here with our cabinet is Dr. Deborah Delsum. We want to welcome her to the position of Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources in this interim capacity. And as she onboards, we're going to give her a pass this evening, but we do want to thank the HR department for helping put together the report for this evening. They are helping Dr. Delson get acclimated. At the same time, we do want to thank Dr. Frost for the work that he's done for us over the course of this fall semester, kind of rolling into the month of January. He expresses his apologies for not being here this evening, but again wanted to thank the board and cabinet for their work in supporting him and the department over this transition period following Dr. Vogelar's retirement. But then also as we're ready for a permanent replacement for the 23-24 school year. So again, thank you to Dr. Frost. Welcome, Dr. Delson. If you do have questions in and around the human resources report, we'll certainly take those at this time. Any questions from the board?
Dare I ask about the ENIP, whether or not we're feeling good about where that landed?
Yeah, well, ENIP, another education acronym as far as the Early Notification Incentive Program. Anything to share in regard to that, Dr. Delson, or?
I think we're around 31 staff that have notified at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
Well, this will be a better question next month. Never mind.
Okay, hold that thought. The last report then would be mine as far as 4.06 and superintendent's report. A couple of items that I wanted to ensure were highlighted. We mentioned one, and that's the informational sessions that are coming up in regard to the no tax increase bond issue and the debt service levy transfer that will appear alongside our board candidates that have filed on our April ballot. So we'll send plenty of information out for people to become educated about items that will appear on the ballot. Tomorrow we have a unique opportunity to travel to Jefferson City. There will be a few of us that will be traveling to be part of the governor's State of the State address that occurs tomorrow afternoon. As a Blue Ribbon School recipient, Epic Elementary was invited to send a couple of students along with their parents, the principal, and myself to be part of the State of the State address in which their blue ribbon recognition will be mentioned, an opportunity to connect with the governor's office. So we look forward to traveling to Jefferson City and participating in that tomorrow. I believe that is streamed as well for anybody that wants to tune in. Earlier this month, we recognized our teacher ambassador team, and they pulled together for some professional development and an afternoon together prior to school starting. And really want to recognize Melissa Taylor, and I know there are others that assist her with that program. But if you're not familiar with that program, I know Ms. Rogers was able to spend the afternoon with them. Their focus and mission is really on recruitment for prospective educators and how do we create a pipeline for the profession, especially right now when you're seeing workforce development issues across all industries. Public education is not immune to that. So how do we recruit prospective educators into the field, into the profession? You may know that Ms. Taylor also works closely with our educator internship program and has a direct tie and connection to our students and those that are interested in pursuing that profession. Secondly, the focus of the program is really on retention of the quality staff that we have. And ensuring that morale and culture and some of those pieces are addressed, in ensuring that we have new strategies at a time when a lot of change is taking place in the profession, but then also in our communities and across the country. So we'll continue to work closely with that group. That is funded in part through ESSER funds as far as funding from the federal level, but we'll look to bring updates periodically from that group as well as any recommendations that they bring forward within those respective areas. We mentioned Coffee with the Community coming up later this week, of which Dr. Dixon Seahorn will share an Office of Equity update in February. Keep an eye out for that event, and that Colleen Jones will be facilitating a program focusing in on college and career readiness opportunities, real-world learning experiences that we offer in our district, and she is always good about highlighting our students and their testimonies and their experiences. So we can look forward to hearing from some of our students in February around their experiences tied to real-world learning opportunities. I know many of you, several of you on the board signed up for our January 26th event with Cooperating School Districts of Greater Kansas City. That is an area legislative meeting in which they are provided opportunity to come and share and report out the work that's happening in Jefferson City as the legislative session convenes. There's a business meeting of cooperating school districts at 5:30, followed by a meet and greet at 6:30, and then at 7 o'clock that legislative meeting is set to kick off. The next day, the MMEA conference is slated to take place in Lake of the Ozarks. And if you're not familiar, that is the Missouri Music Educators Association. As part of their conference, they include audition performances. And so you have to audition to perform at that particular conference. And we are fortunate this year to have 2 programs, both from Liberty North High School, that will perform on Friday, January 27th. The first is the Liberty North High School Chamber Orchestra that performs at 11:15 a.m. And after lunch, we will hear from the Liberty North High School Wind Symphony that will perform at 1:15 p.m. So I know several are planning on going down for those performances. We've had multiple groups in the past, elementary, middle, and high school, perform at MMEA, and are fortunate this year to have 2 of those performing groups, audition-only performing groups, that will perform on January 27th. With that,
big deal too. That's competitive.
It is.
It is.
It is. And so they have a review process, an audition process, and typically those are incredible events among all the schools that perform. Just because you're at a different caliber, you're at a different level with those groups that perform at MMEA.
Well, and I think that if the members of the public want to see them perform, I think this Sunday between 2 to 5, and it does not conflict with the Chiefs game, but this Sunday from 2 to 5, there will be, not only will those 2 music groups get to perform at Liberty North's auditorium, but they also are inviting in the University of Missouri's Wind Symphony and UCM's jazz band, and I think Missouri State's trombone choir. So if anybody in the public wants to catch that performance, what they'll be performing before they go down there, that would be a good opportunity.
Yep. Thanks for that addition.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments regarding the superintendent's report?
Okay. Into Section 5, unfinished business, we'll start with a slew of board policy revisions.
Just a few.
So we have a few, and you have some motion language there for your consideration, but just as a reminder for the community, public in and around our board practice, as we look at board policies, we have used a first read, second read, typically separated by a month. So a month ago you saw these policies presented to you for first read. Since then, our administration, cabinet, other leaders have been taking a look at those to ensure that our practice aligns to our policy. And so we have 3 items for you this evening, or 3 categories. Policies that are to be adopted that are listed there before you are administrative procedure, which again does not require a board action, but is something that is just listed there for your awareness, and then a policy to be rescinded, which is DBB as it relates to the fiscal year. Some of that language is housed in other policies, so we would present those items for you for your consideration this evening.
So a couple of comments. Ms. Kimberly's public comment today obviously goes very timely with policy JHDF, which is suicide awareness and prevention, and we address exactly what she has mentioned. So I suppose we get to check that box if we've done that. The other thing I want to point out, and this sometimes gets lost in all these policies, but if you look at the adjustments to DJF-1, which is purchasing, you'll note that there's a lot of cross-outs of specific dollar amounts, et cetera. But I will point to the administrative procedure, and all the letters, DJF-1AP, which further explains all of the purchasing procedures that are going to go forward. So you'll note in the adjustment that it's saying something about informal purchases. There is a whole list of administrative procedures that address that. So there is still policy and procedure that goes into place for making any purchases, not simply carte blanche.
Yep.
Would you like the motion?
I get a question about that same JHDF policy on suicide prevention. There's one of the, I think it's the new, is the in the green, is assigning a case manager, an appropriate employee to serve as case manager for any student returning to school after a suicide attempt. That's I mean, we have big schools, and I just wonder how practically that will work, and how many people do you need for it, and what does that entail? Anyway, I was just, not that everything sounds like good practice, but
Right.
the practical implementation.
Some of the
it.
logistics to follow.
Right.
Yeah. We will need to follow up with you
Is
on
that
that.
like a counseling department type
It
of
could be a
function,
combination of folks. Ideally, yes, as far as a counselor. We also have suicide, crisis teams that come in and have a variety of assessments and interventions to ensure that those students are supported. But ultimately, that would land on our counselors to be able to spearhead. But we'll get some additional information and share that back with the board as well. So.
And this policy is in response to Missouri statute now, right?
Change the
So this
statute.
is
It is.
Yeah,
part of that. I'm
statutory
with Dan. I
changes.
think the one thing, case manager to me means something very different in a social worker setting. This feels more like, I guess I would call it a liaison.
Like a touch
between
point
the
or
school, a touch
something,
point or
yeah.
something along those lines. The verbiage is what it is from
Human-
the statute, to your point.
Right.
But it does feel a little.
We'll look at that for clarification.
I don't mind making the motion. This is like my old job to run through all of these kind of policies and say them quickly sometimes. So I move the board adopt policies BDDF, BDDL, DB, DJF1, DJFA, GBLB, IF, IGAD, IGCE, JFGA, JHC, JHDF, JHG, JG-R1, and rescind policy DBB.
Second.
Karen, it seems like you passed the eye exam. Denise, when you are ready.
AJ?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Kim Marie?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, get your spring break plans ready. 23-24 academic calendars.
This one also follows a first read and second read. We've actually taken a little longer to include time at our study session. And so would be remiss if I didn't thank Team Liberty again for their work over the course of the fall semester as they look at a variety of options and scenarios for consideration and then bring those recommendations to me that then comes on to the Board of Education for your consideration. So you have two documents this evening, the first of which is our Liberty Public Schools academic calendar in terms of the district per se. The second that follows is then a slightly modified EPIC calendar. And so as we've seen previously in previous reads, to hit some high points for the 23-24 school year, again, looking at the start of school being August 23rd for our first day of school. Fast forward to the latter part of December, interest in and around when winter vacation will be held. The end of the first semester is slated for December 21st, with winter vacation to start December 22nd and run through January 2nd. That will be followed by a teacher workday on January 3rd, with then students reporting on Thursday, January 4th for the second semester. Walk through the month of January, February, March, and respective dates. Another date of interest would be when our spring break falls. And so looking at spring break taking place on March 25th through 29th. That was one item we were waiting to hear back from other school districts because of some of our shared programming, particular for our high school students as it relates to Northland CAPS or KC Tech Academy, Early College, our two career centers and the like. We were able to confirm that in looking at other districts, North Kansas City and Platte County align with the same spring break. And both of those districts do house or support those programs we mentioned, Northland CAPS, but then also our Northland Career Center. Park Hills is off. It actually is the week before, March 18th. But we feel good about us being aligned with those other districts in support of those shared programs that we offer between all of us. Taking a look at the EPIC calendar, a couple of highlights for them as well. Their first day of school would be August 9th. As far as EPIC's first day, followed by a same winter vacation as we saw earlier, same spring break, but then as you look at the conclusion of their school year, their tentative last day of school is scheduled for June 7th. And on both of those calendars, you have clarification in and around inclement weather days and what that might look like. The other thing that I would add to these two calendars is that we are looking at sprucing it up, so to speak. So our communications department will be working on some formatting changes to make it a little bit more visually appealing. But the content that you see in front of you this evening for your consideration will be what is reflected, and we'll certainly share that with you once those revisions visually are made and to be posted to our website. So we'll present those to you this evening for your consideration.
Nick would like periwinkle to be added.
Periwinkle color.
We can do just about anything.
As always, big thanks to Team Liberty. And I don't think we always recognize Bob Citro, but his efforts in making sure that we are in line with ours.
With the number of minutes.
Minutes, yes, sorry. Seconds almost.
I move the board adopt the 2023-2024 district and EPIC elementary calendars.
Second.
Denise, when you're ready.
AJ?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Kim Marie?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And into new business, starting with contracts, purchases, and bids.
We have two RFPs, and a summary of those are presented to you this evening. Those are for discussion only, but wanted to turn it over to Mr. Anderson to provide the highlights on those two items.
Sure. Just briefly, in that paragraphs outline the process that we go through always for these types of situations. The first one is our scheduling and reservation system. Currently, we've been with Tandem for some time. We felt like it was limiting us in certain ways, and so a team got together. We went through the process. Their recommendation is Facilitron. So we're kind of working with that team to pull together a contract, which would be in front of you next month. So that was, I think, a unanimous decision from that team. And then the second one is Career Education and Real World Learning Solutions. This is currently a relationship that we use, at least in part, with PowerSchool and Naviance. Again, looking for a more robust system to adapt to our ever-changing needs. And that team came together, and their recommendation is to go with SchoolLinks. Again, that was unanimous. And the same thing, we're working with them currently to put a contract together and would have that in front of you next month for consideration.
Who were the, you don't have to give exact names, but the positions that evaluated that career ed and real world learning solution? Do we have teachers, administrators? I mean, what was the makeup of that group?
It was two counselors, one from each of the high schools, and then also the registrar from each of the high schools. We felt it was important because they do all of the transcripting, and that's also part of it. And then we have a district real world learning team. So Bob Citro, Kelly Soluri, Colleen Jones, and myself were the main people, in addition to the counselors and then the registrars.
Perfect, thank you.
And what's the timing of the ideal timing of transition? Is it line up to school year, or is it something that you do?
For ours, it'll be at the beginning of the school year, so we will take out, we'll finish out our contract with Naviance, Transio, Badger, all of those, and we'll just have one system, and then we'll start that with the new school year.
I think the same would apply for Facilitron.
So will there be, I guess, is this something that we'll have to gear up parents for working with the new system? Not that anybody's mastered PowerSchool, but give us a new
They'll
challenge.
still have PowerSchool, so that will be fine, but this system will talk to PowerSchool. So when students will use this for their ICAP, so they'll be able to put their courses in their course request into SchoolLinks, and then SchoolLinks will talk to PowerSchool to let it know that these are the courses that the student should be taking each semester, which is great for our counselors to help them with the scheduling process and being more efficient. But for the students and for parents, it will really be getting on and seeing, they'll still be able to get on PowerSchool and see their graduation progress. This will be more of, they'll have a portfolio, they'll be able to see what market value assets, they'll be able to get on and request that their transcripts be sent to certain colleges and so forth. So they'll still be able to use PowerSchool.
So for the parent, it would just look like an extension or an expansion of what they've grown used to.
With fewer systems, rather than relying on multiple platforms, the interoperability is lessened down to one. The other thing I think that's important to note is that it's portable, so that once the student graduates, they continue to retain access to the program, which is invaluable as far as them being able to access their documentation and so forth.
The nice thing also, yes, with that is that it's free, where several of the other systems required a $5 cost to students once they graduated. So with this, having the alumni in there, and we'll be able to update emails, and then we have the graduation, the 180 days post-graduation survey that we always do, and we'll be able to access the students' information through this platform.
Okay. So you again will see this in February. So any additional questions as it relates to these two RFPs? Okay.
Into section 7, Board of Education, starting with legislation/advocacy.
Sessions in progress.
Sessions.
Committees have been established.
Some hearings start tomorrow, I think.
Yep.
So.
Upcoming meetings, you will note, looks like right out of the gate, April 4th, Election Day, mark it down. I know you'll be able to vote early as well, so think about that as you consider. February 7th will be our study session, 7 a.m., bright and early. Any board remarks?
Yes. The Liberty North wrestling team attended the Martin Luther King celebration. It was a decision made by the students and their coach. I think the coach's parents are here. I can't remember her name at the moment. Will you share the coach's name?
Laurel Sugar.
Laurel? Yes. Okay. But I thought that was impressive that students are making decisions like that. And gave up a day of wrestling practice or a game. So I really appreciated being a member of the Clay County African American Legacy and a sponsor of the Martin Luther King celebration. Thank you. And there were other folks there too that I want to acknowledge all, but appreciate you coming out.
I was able to attend the character trait luncheon on Friday, sponsored by Hy-Vee. Just another great opportunity to recognize kids for being good kiddos, and it was really fun to read their descriptions of the things that the way that they treat their fellow students, which is just always, it's just phenomenal. So, and we had a really good turnout, and of course thanks to Hy-Vee for hosting and all of the other community sponsors who come out, and I mean there were a lot of them there, so it was great. It was great, really fun.
Okay. Nothing further?
I move the board adjourn open session and reconvene closed session.
Second.
Denise, when you're ready.
AJ?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Kim Marie?
Yes.
Drew?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We're moving?
We are. Okay.